because I've always hated cooking, found it really complicated, time-consuming, pain in the ass. And so I decided I would tackle cooking, force myself to kind of deconstruct it and learn it, and then teach all of these principles about learning anything throughout the entire book. So even if this is a cookbook for learning disguised as a cookbook for food, and there are recipes in there, sure, but if you never make any of the recipes, it's basically 5 books in one for different people who are interested in different things.
Do you do baking in this as well?
There's some good cookies for cheat day. Oh, yeah.
That's the really hard part. That was a trick question, and you passed because baking and cooking, people don't realize, are 2 completely different worlds.
They're
You're
very
usually
different.
good at one and not the other.
Yeah,
Cooking is like, I'll eyeball it. This looks like a quarter cup.
Yeah.
Whereas baking has to be precise or nothing works.
It can really screw you up. And I remember what one culinary school teacher said to me. He said, yep, if you like to fold your socks in your underwear, you're probably a baker.
Yeah.
You do have to be precise. And sometimes I enjoy that because it takes any of the... I don't like ambiguity very much. So when people are like, oh, salt to taste, cook it until it's done, I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, I don't like ambiguity.
Makes me crazy, right? So what I like about baking is they're like, here's the recipe, it will work every time. I'm like, sweet, perfect. Assuming there aren't like a million ingredients. So there's a little bit of baking in the book, but most of it is very
there's a lot of
minimal.
You cooked tree rat.
Oh yeah, squirrels, they're pretty good.
Yeah, you cooked squirrel, and he's on a spit right here. And I got to be honest with you, if I didn't know that was a squirrel, and you just said, come over here and have some, just by the photo alone, he looks pretty tasty.
He does. He kind of looks like your dog, though.
He does look like... He does look... That's a little... It looks like Norma right there on a spit. Oh, poor Norma. Except he weighs more.
Yeah, right.
But you wanted to do like the 4-hour mind. Did you make a concession for the fans doing the 4-hour mind and redirecting it to a culinary book for the 4-hour chef?
I wanted to do a few things. The first was to assume that you really never know what the outcome is going to be when you put a lot of work into something like this. Like, hopefully it'll do well. Yes, the first 2 books did well, but things tank all the time. So I wanted to enjoy the process and the way.
Have you seen my IMDb page?
Yeah.
Yeah, things tank all the time.
Oh, Jesus. Well, you've also done more projects than I have. I mean, keep in mind, nobody knew who the hell I was in 2007.
I'd like to have 3 projects that made me a shitload of money instead of flying to Canada for the anyway.
Well, we could talk about this, man. I mean, you have...
That's my 80-20 diagram, my Venn diagram from the Princeton Review course.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a quick study. You have a lot of assets that are underutilized, and it's not to be like,
ooh, tell me.
Yeah. Well,
this is great.
No, I'm just saying that I'm not trying to be like German engineer about it, but it's. I feel like there are. I'll put it this way. I bet that maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 5% of your fans. Like, you know what? I'm like such a diehard fan. Everything you've recommended, I've loved. And if you gave me a way to spend like $500 a year and get the best of what you have to offer or what you have to recommend, I'd spend it. I guarantee you they're out there.
But recommend stuff that I didn't do?
Well, this is
like your book,
Sam
Sheridan's book, Bootsy Collins CD.
Yeah.
How do
I mean, I'm not saying that it's specifically product recommendations, but there are a small percentage
Give
of
me
your
$500 and I'll tell you what I think you should buy.
Something like that. And the reason I say that,
you're not leaving this house.
No,
tonight.
the reason I say that, check it out, is because I've tested. Big surprise! I've tested this. I'm an advisor to a startup called Quarterly.co, and I've been in my other career is startup stuff. So I'm an investor in Twitter and Facebook and about 30 Evernote. A lot of these companies, about 30 of them. With Quarterly, you have curated boxes that ship every 3 months to your diehard fans. And they've traditionally been priced pretty low. And I said, you know what? I don't want to try that. I want to try higher priced. $100 every 3 months. That's $400 a person per year. And I guarantee if you put together something like that, that given your career and the fans that you have, that a percentage would convert. And here's the most important thing of all is, if it doesn't work, Who cares? It doesn't, like, no, I'm saying.
It sounds like a line from Meatballs. Learn it, live it, love it. If not, who cares?
But it's true. It's like the cost of failure with these kinds of things is so
But what would
low.
most of the things I've done is a movie that somebody else wrote, a studio produced.
Yeah.
Somebody else financed. I can't give that away. The only thing I can give away is, like you said, using the Louis C.K. model is content. Content is king.
Yeah.
And I certainly can do it. And I can come up with a ton of content. But if you come see my stand-up for a $30 ticket, you'll get the content. But George Carlin put it best, where he's been going about this all wrong. I keep going to towns and doing my content to 1,500 people at a time. Then he wrote a book and realized I never left my house. And 40 million people bought the book, and people put it in stores in other towns for me.
Yeah,
that's the way to go about it.
Yeah, you could certainly take that approach. The point that I'm making is
Matty Boy's salivating over the squirrel on a spit. He keeps leaning forward like that. Does look good.
And the leg twists off just like a chicken leg. It's great.
Is it good?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, you have to. I recommend though, if you cook squirrel, you have to burn the hair off first, or it's a nasty mess. You just roll it around on the embers for a while.
Is there a food where you don't have to remove the hair first? What? It's not like dog where you can eat it with the hair and everything. It's not like horse where the hair's good.
The bear, you just
The vagina diagram in the book. Good one, Matty Boy. Yeah, that hair had to be removed, or otherwise Walmart would not have carried it. So I don't know what I can offer. I don't want to make it about me. I want you to sell a lot of books because you're great at what you do. But again, it seems odd to me. I feel like
I forgot to give a couple of reasons why the hell I would do such a book.
Right.
That seems
I feel
like a departure.
you left a lot of super good brain stuff on the table.
No, I didn't.
Piling it into this.
I didn't leave it on the table. What I did is there are a couple of things that I realized. The first is that the market for people who want to learn is rather small. The market for cookbooks is extremely large. And if I also wanted to experiment with photographs, and
there's a lot of pictures in this
1,000+ photographs, hundreds of original diagrams. I wanted to be a comic book penciler for about 10 years. So I wanted to get back to that and do something visual. So I thought to myself, well, I can capture a lot of the cookbook audience. I can take people who want to learn, which is a much smaller percentage of my readership. They will buy this book if I promise them that I have at least 100 pages dedicated purely to how to learn anything, which I do in the very first section.
You're making fire, how to do knots and stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's good stuff. It's like a field survival guide as well.
Yeah, it's like a grown-up's guide to becoming MacGyver. Yeah, in a way. So that was the approach. Has it worked? Yeah, it has. It's been challenging, doubly so, because I partnered with Amazon Publishing for this. This was the first major book out of Amazon Publishing. And as a result, the book was boycotted by Barnes & Noble and almost all of the major retailers in the U.S.
Nobody's going to Barnes & Noble's anyway, except to get their kids in there on a rainy day.
This is true. However,
in New York,
it makes it really hard to hit the New York Times bestseller list if you're not in Barnes & Noble, because they're one of the main reporting channels. The point being, I'm most interested in where this is going to be in the next few years, and I'm just experimenting. Like I did a partnership with BitTorrent, gave away 2.5 gigabytes of content and video and extra chapters and stuff, and
why? What's the
I'll tell you.
What's the long range benefit to Tim Ferriss for giving away gigabytes?
Okay, I'll tell you. Because I had all this stuff, and I assume that if I can control the downside, the upside will take care of itself. So I was like, what's the worst thing that can happen if I give away this content, which people will enjoy? Nothing. Pretty much. Because
worst case scenario is they read it, they watch it, the video, and then they just close their computer and they go to bed and they don't ever...
Sure, exactly. So it's zero negative impact to me.
The best case scenario.
Best case scenario is pretty much what happened, which was got downloaded 1.5 million times in the first 10 days, no labor from me, just by being featured on BitTorrent, and had something like it's between a 60 and 80% click-through rate to the Amazon purchase page, just with a support this artist button on the same download page. So that was by far the highest ROI, lowest labor promotion I did across the board.
What does ROI mean?
Return on investment.
Okay. That's something I actually should know. I'm embarrassed. Everyone's in the garage nodding. Angie fell asleep on the letter R.
But yeah, like if there's no downside or very limited downside, try it. And
so like a podcast on iTunes. I know
Yeah.
iTunes and Stitcher, there's a lot of things, but iTunes seems to have a really strange algorithm for how they rate the podcast. Like if you rate it, even if you give it 0 stars and say this is the worst glop of shit I've ever seen in my life, iTunes machinery goes, but activity, great, jump it.
yeah,
So you're like a guy that you're even testing stuff like that.
testing all of it. So one of the things that appealed to me about Amazon is, number one, they know their customers better than the customers know themselves in a lot of cases. Like if you look at my Amazon Prime purchasing behavior, like you can figure out a lot of stuff about me. And as a result, they can communicate directly with the readers who are most likely to buy my book. No other publisher can do that. They don't have the one-to-one relationship except for perhaps Apple. And Apple's going to be a big competitor in the next few years. What they can also do is tell me stuff that no author's ever had before. Data that I can use even if I don't do something with Amazon in the future, such as what are the top 50 sources of traffic to my Amazon page? Like, who's sending the traffic?
How do you reach these fans?
Well,
all I know is Twitter.
Yeah.
And people that like, I don't know, subscribe to my newsletter that I stopped writing
Yeah.
years ago because of Twitter.
Yeah.
Like there's Facebook, I suppose, but like how does Tim Ferriss know whether or not he's reaching these people?
Well, first of all, I have, in the case of Amazon, we agree up front as to when they're going to email, what type of people they might email. And secondarily, I give away the free content in part because I want to drive them to my blog, which is based on WordPress. That is the heartbeat of everything that I do. And I think it's important for people online to choose one predominant home base. For me, that's my blog. For other people, it might be Facebook or Twitter. I use Facebook and Twitter, stumbled upon as well, to drive traffic to the blog. That is my main
It's timferriss.com.
HQ. It's 4hourblog.com. FOURHOUR.
4hourblog.com.
Yeah. And on that blog, I have something like 1.2 million monthly readers. And
That's insane.
I'm very,
That's
very
great.
fortunate. Yeah.
I mean, we get 1 million listeners a month, but that's listening in your car. Like people have to sit and read and invest time. So they're really going against your 4-hour work week because they're reading your blog instead of getting their things done. Or they've done your 4-hour work week so effectively, they then have time to read your blog.
I created the 4-hour work week so people could read more of my blog posts. No, I'm kidding.
Not really.
No.
If that's what they choose to do with their free time.
You know, I think it's it's a blog with substantive posts, generally
but again,
speaking.
Why the number 4?
No, because, all right, so I remember I tested these titles, right, for the 4-hour work week, and I was working 2 to 4 hours a week managing my company at the time. And the conversation came out, we tested on Google AdWords a host of titles, and the 4-hour work week won.
All right.
Initially, I'd wanted to test the 2-hour work week, and my publisher said, that's ridiculous, no one's going to believe it, and so we compromised at the 4-hour work week.
If I put out the 3.5-hour work week, I'm just going to blow you out of the water.
You might. 6-minute abs, man.
Oh, yeah. Right. I'm like, that seems familiar. Oh, yeah. It was in a movie, a huge movie. Harlan Williams, 6-minute abs.
So good.
So it was literally, you said this earlier in the podcast, but I just want to circle back around because it's fascinating. You just focus grouped it, for like $200 over like a couple weeks. People did the research for you and it got spit out. Hey, guess, you know what works? 4-hour works.
Yeah, 4-hour work week, and then the escape 9 to 5, live anywhere, and join the new rich. That was the combination. But
What number was second place?
Oh, second place. I had some terrible
11.
titles.
Something weird.
The 11-hour work. The 150-hour work week did not perform well.
Biceps in 11 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I tested drug dealing for fun and profit, which I was sure was going to just to like prove a point.
Just hearing you say that earlier,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's one of the coolest
I know.
titles ever. It should be the name of a movie.
But I don't think it would have performed, and it didn't perform as well as the 4-hour work week.
Yeah, you really can't poo-poo the results of what you've done.
It was very accidental. But
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the what I think is one of the most amusing and instructive parts of the story as it relates to testing the titles and subtitles is that all I cared about was how many people clicked on the link. it didn't take them anywhere. It took them to an under construction page. There was no website because all I cared about was which title and which subtitle work. I also, this is a little more analog, but to test covers, because I've sketched out and designed the covers for the